Okay, so when I'm filming this is October 1st, which means the beginning of spooky season, and I just want to read spooky, creepy, terrible stuff. So I'm going to wrap up all that I've read in September, which is not spooky and creepy. Well, there's some creepy stuff, you will see. Hello beautiful bookworms, my name is Katerina and welcome to my channel, and today I'm going to be doing a very fast, if I can, very quick September wrap-up. So I've read 2 books in September, I have read half another book in September, and I have read 4 manga/graphic novels in September. So let's get into it. So the first 2 things that I'm going to talk about are the 2 mangas that I read in September, and I have a review for both of them, which means that I'm going to leave them link up above, and I'm not going to talk a lot about these, but they are Downfall by Inio Asano and Venus in the Blind Spot by Junji Ito. So the first one is basically the story, the self-insert story of a main character that is sort of supposed to be kind of Inio Asano, and he is a mangaka. He has just published his most famous series. It has just reached an end and it has just sold out everything. He is in the tops of the selling, but now he has a problem because he doesn't know what his next series is going to be about, and his marriage has a very tense strain on it, and he just feels like he's not going to be able to write anymore. He's hating manga, he's hating his job, he's just slowly drowning. And I cannot talk about this again, that's why I did a review about it, so I didn't ever have to talk about this again, but it's very mature, it's very triggering, but I do advise you to read it if you like beautiful art and if you like impactful societal and personal topics, because this is what this is, impactful and genius, even though it made me feel sick while reading it. Then we have Venus in the Blind Spot by Junji Ito, which this is a collection of short stories by Junji Ito, of course, horror short stories. Some of them are funnier than others, some of them are spookier than others. I really enjoy Junji Ito's work. I am going to leave linked up above the review that I've done of this collection of short stories and also the reviews that I've done of his works if you want to pick some up, because we are in October and you have to read. I mean, you have to read if you want to, because I am not the best person to tell you what you have to read, even though I try to sometimes, but you should read spooky. And if you like body horror, Junji Ito is going to be your friend. So as this is a collection of short stories, I can say a lot about it. It does have some stories that were repeated from some of his other collections of short stories, but it has some great stories and it has a lot of color in the middle of the art, and it's amazing. It's Junji Ito, he's a master, we all know. Then I've read 2 graphic novels, and that is The October Faction Volume 4, Deadly Season, and The October Faction Volume 5, Supernatural Dreams. And I am going to leave link down below a sort of comparison that I did with the October Faction comic series or graphic novel series and the October Faction show on Netflix, which I really enjoyed. And I read these 2 because I still had to read these 2. I only had read the first 3 of the series to actually finish it. I enjoyed it, and what I can say about this is that this is sort of like Supernatural. It doesn't really have a plot, although we all love it because it doesn't really have a plot, but it's just basically a family just throwing punches and kicking asses at demons. And in this 5th one, there's this goat-headed demon. And I love him. He's just so crude. And he is summoned by teenagers. And he asks, like, who summoned me? And the teenagers are like, it was me, sir. And he was like, teenagers. I hate teenagers. And he like ripped their heads off. And I was looking at the illustrations and I was like, shit, man. That is really heavy. You just ripped people's heads off when you don't like them. I wish I could do that, honestly. That's my life goals. But as I was saying, October Faction is fun, and even though it doesn't really have a plot, it's about this family, these kids trying to get into the family business of monster hunting, which it's more similar to Supernatural than I thought of in the beginning. So if you like Supernatural, probably like this. If you don't like Supernatural, this is pretty cool, and the art is pretty amazing, as you can see. So give it a shot, because it's only 5 volumes, and it's pretty cool. I really enjoyed it. Then I finally finished something that I've been reading since July, and yes, it's that boring. And that is The Bonfire of the Vanities by Tom Wolfe. So this is a classic, and this is basically a social criticism, a gigantic social and financial criticism about Wall Street and New York City. It has a lot of talks about racism, a lot of talks about rags to riches and riches to rags. It has a lot of talks about how the Wall Street is a piece of shit, how justice system is a piece of shit, and it's boring as hell. I mean, to be fair, there's parts in here that are really interesting and that develop really quickly. But then sometimes the conversations are just like, why are we... I understand that this is very important to our modern society to understand and to study. But it's just, sometimes the focus is on the wrong things and not on the things that it should, like discrimination and the fact that justice is not great. That will be better than the conversation about a husband that sold stuff to Muslims, and I don't even know. It's just, some conversations here were so stupid, and I hated all of the characters here. All of them. I couldn't, well, I can empathize with people because I like to believe that I'm a nice person sometimes, most of the times, when I want. But I couldn't empathize with anyone here. Like, why are you doing this? Why don't you just come clean? Why don't you just tell the truth? Why don't you... I hate all of them. And then the thoughts of all of the dudes about wanting to fuck women that weren't their wives. I mean, I understand. We don't need to just write a book defending monogamy. Cool, okay, you want to cheat on your wife. But you don't have to think about that all the time and thinking about breasts all the time and thinking about the lips all the time and thinking, Jesus, do all men think of that all the time? I mean, straight men, because gay men will think about men's breasts and men's lips, I guess. But do all men think about sex all the time? Because let me tell you, I have a lot of things to worry about besides penises, for instance. So I just genuinely want to know. So I should have told you what this is about. This is basically about this dude called Sherman McCoy. He has a lover, and one day he runs over, well, not exactly him, she, the lover, runs over a black kid with his car, his Mercedes, in a strange part of town, and they never report it, and this kid gets cranial traumatized, and he gets into the hospital, and he's now in a coma, and everyone is searching for who is the bastard that actually drove through him. And it's such an important criticism for society, but we're not focusing on that a lot. I mean, sometimes we are, and sometimes we get deviations. I can't even explain this. I enjoyed it to a point. I will give it like 2.5 or 3 stars, I guess, because it's an important work at the time, since this was like, what, 1987? So it was really important at the time, but I don't know, there's better ways to call. And I know that this is supposed to be, what makes me mad is that it's supposed to be a work of sarcasm and irony, and I'm smart enough to understand it. But it was just boring. I don't know how to explain this. It's not the best classic that I've ever read. At all. And then finally, the last book that I actually completed in this month was... Wait, what's the translation of this? Okay. Was Marked in Flesh by Anne Bishop. And this is the 4th novel in the Others series, in which basically the Others are shapeshifters that sort of have a peace treaty with us. So we teach them things, and they allow us to live in their places because they are Mother Nature's sons and daughters, and they can shapeshift into humans because their original forms are animals like wolves and bears and coyotes and crows. And not gonna lie, this book was not that great. I mean, if I have to hear one more time that they are the fangs and claws of Mother Nature, I will throw myself out of bed and stop reading it, because... And there's this main character. Our main character is like a blood prophet, and she, every time she cuts herself, which trigger warnings for cutting and self-harm, because my God, each and every page, she's salivating like, I have to cut myself because I have to have a prophecy, and I'm like, Girl, trigger warnings, please, please. But anyways, she escapes the place where she's being held, and she runs away into this place where the others live, and now she's living peaceful with them. And there's a lot of situations between the others and the humans. And of course you can understand that there is something here about colonialism, and that there's something here about Native Americans and people forcibly taking their lands. I understand that. I don't think it's done that amazing. And this fourth book, seriously, this was like a filler book. Nothing happened. And I like Anne Bishop, but again, I'm going to tell you, she peaked at the Dark Jewels trilogy. And then, you know, I guess this is fun because you don't have to think a lot, you don't have to think at all. But it isn't her best at all. Finally, at the time that I'm filming this, I'm currently reading Nevernight by J. Kristoff and loving it, but I don't want to talk a lot about this because I haven't finished it. I'm currently on page 226, and I plan to finish this month, of course, and actually reading the other two, if possible. So, this is the end of my wrap-up. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you've read any of these books, tell me something in the comments down below if you've liked them. If not, so that's going to be it for today, and happy readings to you all. Bye!